But now a lawsuit backed by a nonprofit group called Equal Citizens aims to make California and other states award electoral votes proportionally. And that system would be based on the percentage of California voters who vote for each candidate. For example, based on the 2016 results in California, Clinton would have gotten 35 electoral votes, Republican Donald Trump would have received 17, Libertarian Gary Johnson 2, and the state's Green Party Jill Stein 1. A state attorney general, Javier Becerra, is defending California's current system and has moved to dismiss the lawsuit. So Phil and I asked Willie Brown, former state assembly speaker and former San Francisco mayor, what he thinks of this proportional plan.
Well, I think it would be a good idea. As a matter of fact, the Electoral College really should be abolished. We ought to be about electing people to public office at the highest level through the majority win process.
True, but if you talk to the backers of this lawsuit, they say, look, constitutional amendments are incredibly difficult to get passed. So one way around that, to make the college reflect more accurately the popular vote, would be to award more.
Okay, so you take a state like California or Texas, where it's winner take all, and you would start divvying it up according to the percentage of votes the president won. How would they say that have affected Clinton versus Trump? Well,
if you run the numbers across all 50 states, Clinton would have won narrowly, but she would have won. For example, in California, instead of 55 votes going to her, you'd have 17 or 18 going to Donald Trump, and vice versa, though, in Texas. So you sort of give a little in your state, but you gain in other states.
But you also, if you recall, in our discussion, you have to give whatever the percentage is to some nothing candidate that showed up. So suddenly, we're not talking about somebody getting 50% of the total vote. You're talking about somebody getting a majority of all the votes.
Okay. Well, yeah, so you've got Jill Stein or Gary Johnson, and they might get a handful of Electoral College votes, but I think the people who voted for them wouldn't say that they're nothing. They would say that we want to see our votes reflected.
Thank you for correcting that. Thank you for correcting that. On the other, if they did that, would the perception be that the elections are more fair then?
I believe, Phil, under all circumstances, winner take all with no electoral college. That's my,
okay,
that has always been my position.
Right, but if you
and
did
that'll
that,
be my
but
position.
how would you count? Because every state and every county delivers its count, and you would have questions about the count. Hanging chads, was the count valid in this county and that county? Every
loser raises questions about the count. That's a standard process. And believe me, every democracy experiences that. There's nothing you can do about it except prove them wrong.
You know, I think twice in my lifetime, it's supposed to be very rare, but twice in my lifetime now, we've had this inversion of popular vote and electoral college. On its face, this system seems perhaps more fair.
Well, yeah, and exactly. And if you keep having this issue where the popular vote winner isn't the actual president, and like you said, we've had two, George W. Bush and President Trump, then people lose faith in the system. And so it has to make sense for the population to actually accept the results and say, okay, this is my president. And if we have too many of these going forward, then you might lose the buy-in of the general population, and that can be a real problem. But I do want to point out that Equal Citizen does want to eliminate the Electoral College, but they just say that's probably too hard, so this is the next best thing.
We have to clean the city up. I think part of what we have to do a better job of doing is cleaning the city up and getting more people to feel responsible for doing the same.
DPW also plans on expanding the Pit Stop public toilet program and says it will add hours at existing locations and build 5 more locations throughout downtown. So Phil and I asked former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown how much of this is policy and how much of this is her trying to make a good first impression on constituents.
I think for her, it's really policy. She was doing that kind of stuff when she was a member of the Board of Supervisors. She was doing that kind of stuff when she worked for me, when I served as mayor. That was part of where she comes from. And she's serious about it. I mean, like deadly serious about it. And heads are going to roll if it doesn't happen.
Well, and I think she's also, though, doing something politically, astute as well. Anyone will tell you this is a big issue. Just about any San Francisco voter is going to point to issues of, cleanliness and homelessness on the street as an issue that's in their top 3, if not their number 1. So it's not only maybe something she cares about, but I think she can read a poll.
And believe me, I saw the other day when I was walking the streets, I ran into 2 police officers actually walking on Haight Street. I was up there like 8 o'clock in the morning. Here are these 2 and they were obviously rookies. And they couldn't find their car, but they were walking. And it's because the new mayor says, I want to see police officers walking a beat.
Okay, but if we
too.
have police officers walking the beat, and we have the now christened poop patrol out there cleaning up the streets, does that address the root core of the problem? Because that is where it's going to be judged.
But it starts, Phil. You have to start someplace. And you have to start with what you can, in fact, demonstrate your success at. And believe me, if she can do something about getting the cops out there in uniform walking, if she can do something about the pooper-scooper operations that go on out there, out of the box will come the headlines, mayors succeeding. Ultimately, however, she's got to engage in changing the conduct of all of us.
We know that new safe injection site just opened in the Sunset, so the hope is that that will also help get some needles and kind of drug paraphernalia, drug use off the streets as well.
You know, it seems that the city's homelessness problem and its cleanliness problem are linked. And it seems like you can't solve one without solving the other. You can't have hundreds of people living on the street and expect those streets to be clean.
I agree. And you know, Mayor Brown would be the first person to tell you that it was something he tried to tackle, and every mayor sort of probably before, but definitely since, has come up with a 10-point plan or a 20-point plan for. No one's really been able to get at fixing this problem in a meaningful, long-term way. There is some hope that this new conservatorship law that is making its way through the legislature that will allow the state to take over for people who can't take care of themselves, making those rules a little more liberal is going to help get some of these people the help that they need, even if they don't necessarily believe that they need the help themselves in that moment. So we may be on the precipice of some important changes here.